The January 9th, 2023 council meeting, county council meeting. First, we're going to have an invocation by Carl Leiber, who is a local business owner and pastor of the Ecclesia Church in Forestdale. And after that, Terry Hollander will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. If you join with me, we thank you, Lord, for this day that you've given us. We thank you, Lord, for this gathering this evening. Father, we pray your wisdom, your knowledge, your wisdom upon those that make the great decisions of our community and give of their time and their talents. We pray your, Lord, your anointing and your overflow. Bless their families, their households, and Lord, give them discernment as they take care of the deeds of the community, Lord. So we pray your blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, sir.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. During the roll call, you'll be introduced to our two new council members, Matt Swanson and Tim Baker. So please call the roll.
Councilmember Matt Swanson.
Present.
Councilmember Joe Brazel.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Elam.
Here.
Councilmember Nancy Schneider.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Hammond. Councilmember Terry Hollander.
Here.
Councilmember Tim Baker.
Here.
First item on the agenda is election of the chair. I'm going to open up the floor to nominations.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
I would nominate Joe Brazel to be council chair.
I second that.
Are there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Terry Hollander.
I'll second that nomination. Are there any other nominations? Nominations will close at this time. There being two nominations for chair, I'm going to ask Donna to please take a roll call for vote on the first nomination for council chair.
All right, this is for Councilmember Joe Brazel for chairman. Councilmember Swanson.
Are you asking vote for one or the other?
No, for the first nomination, which would be Mr. Brazel. I should have been more specific. Thank you for Mr. Brazel.
Councilmember Swanson.
Nay.
Councilmember Brazel.
Yes.
Councilmember Elam.
No.
Councilmember Hammond. Councilmember Schneider.
No.
Councilmember Hollander.
No.
Councilmember Baker.
Yes.
And so I will repeat those notions. Swanson, no. Brazel, yes. Elam, no. Hammond, yes. Schneider, no. Hollander, no. Baker, yes.
There being 4 votes in favor of Terry Hollander. Terry Hollander has been elected chair of the council.
Oh, we have to vote for Terry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
You have to.
All right, we have to vote and, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, for Terry.
And this is for Terry
Excuse me.
Hollander as council chair. Councilmember Brazel.
No.
Councilmember Elam.
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond. Councilmember Schneider.
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander.
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Yes.
Councilmember Swanson.
Yes.
Okay, very well. Terry Hollander has been elected council chair. Congratulations. I'll switch places with you, and you can handle the vote for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Dave Hammond as vice chair.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, seeing none.
All those in favor?
All those in favor of Dave Hammond being vice chairman, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is completed then. All right. First on the agenda tonight is conditional use permits, and we have a large number of them, although they're basically confined to 2 different locations, but we will take them one at a time. Is that correct? So let's start out with bill number 5134.
Bill number 5134, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 22-08A for a campground to KAG 144 LLC property owners. Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. My name is Robert Myers. I'm the Planning and Zoning Division Director. And for this, what I'd like to do tonight, instead of making 4 presentations, I'd like to make 1 presentation because it's one property, although there's 4 bills that you were requesting for you to vote upon each one separately. Although there's 4 conditional use permits requested, I would say 3 of them are in service of the 4th one. So in other words, they're requesting a campground, and the other 3 are in service of the campground. That's kind of the way I would explain it. The property is 78 acres on Becker-Jorling Road. It's about 8 miles west of Defiance off of Highway F and Fimi Osage Road. The reason I say that is it's not just something you would drive by necessarily and decide to pull into. This would be a destination, really. The campground that's being proposed is an atypical campground in that they're not proposing to have any recreational vehicles, no trailers, no tents. These would be instead limited to 7 small structures that are defined as cottages by our county zoning. And these structures are basically the size of like a master bedroom. They're small. They're about 200 feet in size. And each of these structures would be basically for shelter and for sleeping. They're intended for campers who want to undertake recreational activities on the property, such as water sports. They're organized, the cottages are organized around a 3-acre lake, and so they intend to have water sports like kayaking and canoeing, but no motorized water sports. There's no motorized boating, for instance. The other conditional use permits that are proposed include commercial farm stand, and as described, it would be really oriented towards the campers. And also rural recreation activity, which again would be oriented towards the campers in that the activities would include the water sports on the pond or the lake. Additionally, this site now has 2 residences on 2 parcels, a really charming historic barn, and also a small log cabin. So they'd like to convert the barn to a community space for campers. But if any of the campers wanted to hold a special event like a wedding, they are proposing a conditional use permit for building structures or open spaces for conducting weddings and or other private parties. So the thought here is to have up to 4 weddings per year, limited to a maximum of 35 persons per event. Additionally, they envision that they may have retreats or groups come here periodically aside from those weddings. Excuse me. For the benefit of the new council members and for the audience, quickly, the conditional use permit criteria that we go by are: would the conditional use be detrimental to or endanger public health, safety, or general welfare? Would the conditional use injure the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity? Would the conditional use injure the aesthetic and or scenic values of the vicinity? Would it substantially diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood? Or would it, the conditional use impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding properties? Planning and Zoning Commission held 4 public hearings on each of these, and they are recommending for approval of each with specific conditions to address potential land use impacts, and county staff concurs with that recommendation. Tonight we have the applicant and the applicant's attorney, Kelly McConey and Lisa Johnson, and they may wish to make a presentation.
Fine. Come on up, folks. You'll need to be sworn in by Donna.
And I can do both at the same time. Okay. Do you both solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Okay. I've got the presentation up on the board, and you also have a copy on your desk. And if you've watched the video of the Planning and Zoning Committee, it might be a little bit repetitive, but just to go through everything so that you can ask questions. This is a picture of the property here on the front. And we're asking for, as Mr. Myers said, for conditional uses which are permitted under agricultural zoning, which is what this is. So the camping, the rural recreational, the farm stand, and events. This is really being presented as a single unit, even though it is for conditional uses that we're requesting. The emphasis really, as Mrs. McConey can explain, is not weddings. I mean, the weddings would be permitted, but there are events, for example, like a business retreat, so that as a package, they could come have a small event with very few people. You use the barn for, say, a business type retreat, have recreational activities. The farm stand would be conjunctive with that as well. And they would camp, which is meaning they would stay on site. And so it's really self-inclusive, but it does include all 4 uses. That's kind of the theory behind the whole project. The site location is on Becker-Jerling Road, and I'd like for you to take note, this is it's brown, but if you'll see where the lake is on the photo here on the aerial, just kind of keep that in mind, because when you see some photos, you'll be able to see where that is in connection with the border of the property. This is a larger aerial showing the general vicinity, and again, you can see the lake, which is central on the property. Currently at the site, these are photos actually of the site itself that were taken there. This is produce that was made in the gardens. And then if you recall, the photo of the lake, there's the house at the front on the bottom right. That's the applicant's home. The barn you can see there. The lake is behind the house on that photo. And then the cabins, which we're going to talk about in a moment, are nestled into those woods, but not too far into the property. They're fairly close behind that, but in the woods. And then the covered bridge is near the entrance off of Becker-Jorling Road, but it's not immediately, that's not taken from the road there, but you can see to the right of that, that is the secondary, it's not a secondary access from Becker-Jorling, but it is a secondary means into the property. These are cabins that are located on the property, which we'll talk about later. That's already there. And again, just some scenes from what this looks like, and that's an example of the type of recreational activities that she's suggesting would be part of these small retreats or events on the property. The current zoning is agricultural, and the conditional uses that we're requesting, as Mr. Myers said, are campground, commercial farm stand, rural recreational activity, and building structures or open spaces for conducting weddings and or wedding receptions or other private parties. And parties is a little bit of a misnomer on this. It's not planned to have parties as the events, but primarily just in conjunction with the camping. So the first use is campground, and with your permission, as Mr. Myers, I'm going to use this as one presentation, so we don't have to go through everything 4 times. So the one on the bottom left is a little cabin that would be used as a library, like a reading library, and the top right is one of the cabins that would sleep 4 people, a maximum, and that would be one of the cabins that's suggested actually as a cottage under the definitions. The location of the existing cabins is seen on the left side there. The red squares are the cabins. The green larger building is the home, and that orange building is the barn. And then number 2 are the top green is the other cabin that's already there that would be used for sleeping. That's another photo of the reading library cabin and then the existing cabin for sleeping. I've added the picture on the left side because that shows the property, the lake, and that little bit of development in the middle in connection with the roadway, and it shows that it's far into the interior past some wooded areas, and so it would not be visible from Becker-Jorling Road. The cabins will be built in a manner aesthetically compatible with the scenery. It's meant to keep the natural setting, not to be, you wouldn't be able to see a modern style cabin, from the road by any means, but even if you were there, it would be compatible with that setting. These are design inspirations. These are not the cabins that she's necessarily going to put there, but you can see that, for example, on the bottom left, it's nice. It has a sort of a dorm-size refrigerator and a sink, but it's not got a full kitchen. But it would be useful for people sleeping there in that small area. As Mr. Meyer stated, we're reviewing all 4 uses in connection with the 4 or 5 categories of requirements, which would be whether it's detrimental to public health, safety, or general welfare, injurious to the use or enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity, or the aesthetic or scenic values, whether it diminishes or impairs property values, and whether it impedes the normal development for uses that are permitted within that agricultural district. I briefly want to mention County Code Ordinance number 22073 that was passed last year because it is relevant in connection with these cabins. Campgrounds are defined as including cottages of up to 200 square feet in area. And if we're approved on this cabin, on the campground, the reason I'm bringing this up is that this is going to show the limitations of that use. Campgrounds include cottages of only up to 200 square feet. Camping is use of open land for travel, recreation, and vacation, including shelter or sites designed and used for temporary occupancy, not as dwellings. So the emphasis there is that this is not going to be something where people are staying there for extended periods of time. It's for this temporary use. And then a camping cabin is a structure of not greater than 120 square feet. These cabins that are proposed are defined as cottages. But cottages, the definition of cottages under the code is up to 350 square feet, but the campground definition serves to limit the size of these buildings to only 200 square feet. So that's very small. And the number of cabins that we're requesting is also limited to the 5 new and the 1 existing. The second use is on-site rural recreational activity. Again, you can see the use there. The typical activities would include kayaking, fishing, hiking. There's walking trails. There are gardens in connection with the farm stand. One of the activities that people attending an event there could do is during a certain portion of the day, go pumpkin picking or something like that. It's all connected. Again, as Mr. Meyer said, there would not be any motorized vehicles or motorized water activity. It would be something quiet and in keeping with what people in this area typically do on their own property anyway. And given the small number of people that would be involved in this and permitted on the site, it would not create any disturbance. So it wouldn't endanger public health, safety, or general welfare. It would be a small number of people. It would not be injurious to the use or enjoyment of other property because it's not going to be visible or audible from the property. There's really no reason it would diminish or impair property values, and it doesn't impose on the development of other properties. It's not going to interfere with that at all. The third use is the farm stand. The goal on that is to, again, part of the overall experience, to provide the flavor of the local setting for people that are staying there or that are attending an event there. They would have things that, like honey that might be produced locally or other items that, that they can purchase that show what the area is like while they're staying there. And the garden plots you can see on the left side they are behind woods, which you can see there, but they are near the entryway. And they are already in existence. They produced vegetables last year. And that would be used as an activity, as well as for the sale of some items on site. These are typical items that she's got in the garden. And the farm stand would sell, these are examples of people that she has approached in the area for products. Their commercial farm stand is not permitted to sell commercially packaged products, so there would not be commercially packaged products there. It would only be items, again, that are local. And this would be a very small operation. I had a few people question whether it would be financially if it would be a financially viable farm stand, and well, the answer is really no, because it's not just standing alone for that purpose. She's not going to be there selling corn, trying to make money off of the farm stand. It's in connection with the people that are going to be staying there. And again, we can run through the 4 categories, but for the reason primarily that it is small and that it is not visible and it's not going to impede activity of other owners in the area, we believe that it meets the CUP requirements as a conditional use. The event space this is a picture of the barn that is on site. As we said, the events are camping in the cabins is one of the primary uses, but it is in connection with the events that she plans to allow to occur in the barn. So it is intended to be a fully on-site focus of activity. It's not staying there for camping, wanting to go off-site. It's so that the entire experience can occur primarily. She's not going to lock people in, but it's primarily so that it all occurs in one place. The events we have suggested, or we've requested limitations on those events. They would take place in the barn that's already located on the site, and it's on the site plan, and it's also in our application, which so you can have a good view of the size and everything. Events would be limited to 35 guests. The camping capability is 30 guests, so that's close to the same amount. There's very few people that would be allowed to attend in excess of people that would be staying there. And for a wedding, that would include everyone that's there. So for example, a wedding party, that would be the wedding party and guests. So you can imagine how small of a wedding event that would be. The property is not to be advertised as a wedding venue because that really isn't the main purpose. The principal purpose is to allow the use of the barn for retreats that take place in conjunction with camping. The number of weddings that would occur would be 4 annually, so that it doesn't become a wedding venue primarily, but it's available for that. That's the idea. The events may occur on Friday or Saturday, and they must be done by 10 p.m. No fireworks or pyrotechnic activities, and there will be no amplified noise on site. So you can see again that this is very inclusive on the property, and it's not going to disturb neighbors or, either on an event basis or overall as far as future use of this. And if you have any questions afterward, please give me a call.
All right.
I guess I'll start, Terry. It's my district.
Sure. Yeah, then we'll have public comments from.
Or whatever you want to
folks.
do, yeah.
Let's do public comments
Yeah,
first,
okay.
okay? All right. Thank you, folks. Anyone who would like to comment on any of these 4 CUPs, you are welcome to do so.
Arnie Dinoff.
Good evening, members of council.
Mr. Dinoff?
Oh, sorry.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Happy New Year. My name is Arnie A.C. Dinoff, County Public Advocate. And I was very thrilled and excited about this project before the Planning and Zoning Commission. This is a classy project. They've really thought about it. It's on 78 acres, and if you look at the comprehensive plan, they could be granted 1 to 4 homes per acre. So we could have anywhere from 78 to 78 times 4, which would be, like over 300 homes on this property. So this is a low intrusive, it's good for the environment, and it's a low intrusive issue for the land. It's nestled in huge trees, as you can see through their pictures that they've displayed. Those are mature, heavy trees that will create buffers, a huge buffer. The distance from the adjoining structures, our 2030 Master Land Use Plan and Zoning Plan, which many of you were part of, that was about 34 or 36 members were on that committee. This is the lowest intrusive use of the land for what they're asking for in the conditional use permit. They've agreed not to allow recreational vehicles or campers that will be prohibited from the property. The campground, they have put a limit on themselves of 30 guests. They have agreed not to use fireworks at the property to disturb adjoining property owners or the neighborhood or create a fire hazard. They've agreed not to have loud acoustical music that is amplified. The parking, I brought that up, the parking issue. They explained it to my satisfaction, that they have amenities for parking, and they're going to be adding parking on the property to comply with our parking ordinance. Sewer disposal, they're camping. There's going to be little sewer disposal and little septic system that'll be used. Their noise is going to be at a minimum. And they've agreed to like I said, the parking control provision. I like the concept and the recreational opportunity that we really need to this part of our county. This will support tourism and our economic development mission. It's low-key, it's presented on its face. It looks and seems to be a classy run opportunity. The property owner will be on the property at all times when there will be guests. And so she's going to have good controls and make sure that it's not out of hand or that there's not a lot of noise or partying going on. This applicant is a great steward of the environment, in my opinion, from their presentation. It's non-intrusive. It's a win-win for our community and our county as a whole, as these 4 conditional use permits are a minimal impact on the neighborhood in this part of the county. So I ask you to unanimously approve this application, and I'll be more than happy to entertain any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I don't have any other cards, but if you.
Okay, is there anyone else here that would like to comment on these particular 4 CUPs? Come on up, ma'am.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. I'm just going to make it real short and sweet. My name is Brianne, and I reside off of Becker Drilling Road, and I just want to say I support my friend and neighbor and her endeavors. So that's all. I support it. So.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else would like to comment on these 4 CUPs? Okay, seeing none, we'll open it up to council members and their comments. Mr. Brazel.
I would just like to say that I did visit with the property owners, and they're very conscious of doing a good job with this and having a nice little place for them. This is kind of like their retirement endeavor. And so I think that it's important to know that if they didn't proceed with this, it could be sold and be sold 5-acre lots, which would be permissible, would not have to go before the county council, and would have 15, 16 houses or something like that. And that would create a lot more traffic and a lot more inconvenience for the neighbors in the area. So I've talked to a few of the neighbors, and I've told them that. I said, I think my #1 job is preserving the area and the beauty out in that area, and I think that this is one way to do it. So that's my thoughts. I'd like to hear what some of the other council members say, but I think this is a decent project. I do have a concern about the wedding venue, so we can ask questions later. Sure. Council wants to ask any questions or anything.
Mr. Baker.
Are we waiting for them to come back up to answer the questions?
You can ask them if you want to.
Well, I guess, first of all, the property is very nice property. I guess my question is, where's the parking? It's not showing up on the site plan. I was just, and where's the parking? I guess it's a 2-part. Where's the fruit stand?
Can I answer?
Yeah.
The fruit stand question? She
Sure,
can maybe
yeah.
show you the parking. So the fruit stand, we don't have a fruit stand yet. I know that we're, as you know, people that are agricultural zoned, we can have a fruit stand, but we don't have that yet. The idea was really to provide something for our guests. This is mostly going to be something for the people that are staying on the property.
So the public's not coming?
No.
Okay.
So we've been giving things to our neighbors, and that's probably where we'll keep it. We don't intend to advertise this. The main reason I wanted to do the commercial farm stand is so I could do, like the young woman that was just up here, her parents sell and produce the best maple syrup out there. And that's kind of where it started. I wanted to be able to sell their product. And then I started talking to a few other people that sell, jams and honeys and things like that. And I thought that would be a really beautiful thing to provide for our guests. So that's how that got started. And I learned that I couldn't sell other people's local products without being a commercial farm stand. So that's why we're asking for this. But that's the extent of it. Pretty much, we're not looking for, loads of people to come through our property to buy, our really delicious lemon cucumbers.
And for the parking?
Okay.
Would you like to address that?
So if you look on the left side, it is on the site plan, but there's a
Okay.
parking lot on the right side, and then there are also parking areas near the buildings themselves. There is not parking down by the cabins. That's going to be a walkable trail, or maybe a small cart, but that's not going to be like a paved roadway or anything down to the small cabins that are being built. But there is a certain amount of parking that is shown on the site plan that was submitted with the application, and it does include handicap accessibility, as well as one of the cabins is also going to be handicap accessible.
So you're not showing any parking up near the actual barn?
The cabins. So our idea is to shuttle people
Okay.
because, again, we want to keep things as pristine as possible.
Okay.
So we don't want a parking spot and people to be able to drive back behind our house and have all that traffic and destroy the beauty of the area. We want to keep that pristine, beautiful, and shuttle them in with their luggage and,
Thank you.
work on my arms.
Now, there is, if your concern is accessibility, there is sort of a roadway that goes around by the barn, by the lake, so that it is accessible, but that's not where parking is set up for a limited number of people.
Mr. Brazel, would you like to ask about the wedding venue?
I was just going to ask, there were some concerns and some calls about the wedding venue, and you had limited it to 4 weddings a year, which is kind of limiting yourself, actually, but I don't know of anybody else who has those kind of restrictions on any kind of wedding venue in the county that we've ever passed. But that would be one of the things that some people were concerned with because they don't want to hear weddings at night in that area. And we don't have anybody out there that's going to count weddings or count guests, So that was just a concern. I mean, I just, everything, a lot of this stuff is an honor system. And, so a lot of people went to your house and you had multiple meetings. You did a good job of communicating with everybody and everyone said so. And so I was just going to bring that up for
Thank you.
a point.
Good to hear.
Just to mention, though, to that point, the ending time of the weddings would have to, again, it's on their honor, or if they're caught doing it, then they would lose the permit. But it's limited to 10 p.m., and again, no amplified noises, and it's in the center of the property. So the idea that someone would hear weddings is really, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And then also the fact that the cabins are in conjunction with it, they're going to be on site. They're not going to be coming and going late at night either, for the most part.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Yes, and this may be for staff more so. Within the CUP, it said that there is no RV camping and everything else, but it didn't say anything about tent camping.
Yeah.
Does that need to be added within the CUP to make sure there is no tent camping?
Go ahead and add it.
Yeah, and there was some confusion when she approached with this project. And camping was the suggestion as to how this would work, and she'd be able to get this use permitted for the property. And so the camping idea, when we had our informational meeting about a week and a half, 2 weeks before the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting, we did discover that there was some confusion. People were concerned this was going to be a traditional campground, and we were going to that she was going to allow tents, and there were going to be campers out there with RVs, but that's absolutely not the case. The absolute limit is the cabins. That's the purpose of this.
But do we need to have that written into the CUP?
That'd be
a no from staff?
Mr. Myers?
But we would not have an objection to that if it was needed.
Mr. Myers, come on up.
I'm sorry.
Sorry to interrupt, but the concept plan is really limits it to the camping cabins, or the cottages, I should say. So the concept plan that goes with this ordinance, it doesn't show any sort of tents or RV spots or trailers or anything like that. So, and the reason it's as limiting as it is because this is what was represented by the applicants, and the thought is if this is what you're holding out to the public, this is what you're going to do, then we can formalize it as part of the conditional use permit, and that's the way it's written, it's proposed to be written as it is.
Okay, thank you.
And one other thing that you might keep in mind is that her home is actually located on the property as well. So, I mean, that's going to be something that she's not going to want is a bunch of people camping out in her backyard.
Okay,
Any
thank
other
you.
questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or concerns? Okay, we will then move on here to, that basically took care of Bill number 51, 34, 35, 36, and 37. Okay, so now we will open up, and will you read the next CUP, please?
Well, I'll have to read each bill.
Right,
Of
okay.
the Becker-Drilling property.
That's right, we got
Okay.
it.
Bill number 5135, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 22-08B for a commercial farm stand to KAG 144 LLC property owners.
Okay.
Bill number 5136, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 22-08C for a rural recreational activity to KAG 144 LLC property owners. Bill number 5137, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 22-08D for buildings, structures, or open spaces for conducting weddings and/or wedding receptions or other private parties to KAG 144 LLC property owners.
Okay. Okay.
Bill number
We-
5138, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 22-09A for a commercial farm stand to Craig Smith, Ryan Smith, and Darlene Smith, property owners.
Okay, Mr. Myers?
Do I need to be sworn in? Okay. All right. Briefly, this request is obviously a separate property, 3 conditional use permits, which are, again, all related. The circumstances are a little bit different, though, in that 1501 Wilmer Road is not nearly as remote. It's about a mile south of I-70 on Wilmer Road. It's an 8-acre parcel that's zoned agricultural and is intensively farmed. With what I would characterize as market gardening, meaning that there's livestock pens, there's greenhouses, there's open plots of land which are intensively farmed, and the farm products are provided directly to consumers, whether they're restaurants or whether they're the public. So it's a little bit different setup. Again, it's 8 acres that's intensively farmed. You have probably seen trends nationally and locally where there's a really strong interest in people connecting with the food that they eat, and they want to know where it comes from and more about how it's produced. And this proposal really taps into that strong desire in that they're wanting to have a commercial farm stand on the property, a rural recreational activity, and a restaurant. Quickly, the commercial farm stand is an existing building about 800 feet off of Wilmer Road, so it doesn't sit right on Wilmer Road. Secondly, the rural recreational activity includes activities like instructional classes for composting, canning, and cooking, as well as a petting farm with miniature goats and other livestock. And then finally, the restaurant is not a traditional restaurant in that you don't just drive by and impulsively think we're going to stop here at this restaurant. Instead, you have reservations and they provide farm-to-table dinners, whether that's underneath a pavilion or whether that's in a field. So again, that's kind of a connection to the food, connection to the land. It's an experience. People are wanting agricultural experiences, and this is essentially what they're hoping to achieve But as the applicants have stated, this is first and foremost a working farm, so it's primarily agricultural with these additional conditional use permits. As you might imagine, if you have all three activities at the same time, you could have a lot of activity potentially. So what's being proposed is no more than 50 guests in total permitted on site at any one time. The parking that they propose lines up along the western property line next to an open field, and there's nothing built next door to where the parking is being proposed. So again, it's not a parking lot that's going to be right on Wilmer Road. The Planning and Zoning Commission held public hearings on December 21st for all three conditional use permits and took public comment. The conditional use permit criteria are the same as what was just related in the previous case, and they're detailed in the written staff report that's part of your packet. The Planning and Zoning Commission, after taking public comments, recommended in favor of all three conditional use permits with specific conditions to address land use impacts for neighbors. And I'd like to introduce Ryan and Darlene Smith, if they care to make a presentation.
Thank you. Come on up.
Do you both solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Yep. Hi, Ryan and Darlene Smith, 1501 Wilmer Road. Wanted to thank Mr. Myers for giving such an accurate representation of what we're here to support tonight. Ryan and I live on our farm where we raise our family and our two children. We are a family farm. We're selling to our community, local community, through our online sales and through on-farm pickup. And then we have restaurants that we support locally throughout St. Charles County and our community.
So our conditional uses are, let's see. The first one being the commercial farm stand, which was, as Robert said, an existing structure that was on the farm from the previous owner that we've rehabbed to use as our farm stand to retail our agricultural products that we raise on the farm to our local community. And then we complement that with a few items from other local farmers and producers in the area. So
I think something that Robert had mentioned, that agricultural use is, to understand and experience agriculture is very important in this area. One of the things that is really important to us is that both of our grandparents were farmers in St. Charles County. One in Wentzville was one of the last standing farms in Wentzville, and I know people still tell me how much they miss the cows on the parkway. Unfortunately, it did have to be sold, but my husband was able to tear down my grandmother's barn and use that to refinish our market stand. So we've kind of taken what was a trademark in Wentzville and re-put it out on our property where it belongs.
and so the other two conditional uses are basically something that we wanted to do. Our community has really expressed the desire for different events and stuff on the farm. Anytime a family comes out, oftentimes they'll bring their kids so that they can see the chickens and the pigs and just sort of interact with the farm. And it's been we've had a lot of just good response from our community that have visited to purchase from us. And so we wanted to sort of open up the farm a little bit more for the farm-to-table dinners, that we could showcase the food that we grow and literally have it prepared for customers to eat right there on the spot. Also showcase some of the local chefs that we do business with on a weekly basis. So initially they would cater in food to be served on the farm, and then at some point down the road we hope to have construct what we're calling a commercial kitchen, which would initially be, or would primarily be like a wash pack facility for us to use for washing and packing our produce and stuff that we raise on the farm, but also be certified by the health department so that we could do some food preparation there on site to service the dinners.
I know our community has come out to show their support for us at the Planning and Zoning meeting. There were over 45 letters written into the council in support of the project.
And then the rural recreational activity was sort of, again, centered around a lot of the feedback that we had gotten from our local community. A lot of people want, instructive gardening classes and how to compost and things like that. And just different events on the farm where they could sort of interact with the land. And, it's in kind of it's nestled in an area that's very peaceful and boutique. And so we wanted to be able to interact with our customers and our community in a different way other than just selling our products. So that is what we hope to do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Is there anyone that would like to comment on this particular CUP, or these three, actually?
Arnie Dienoff?
You already sworn in.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate. I also attended this, and I believe that this is a good concept and presented plan that was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission. However, I want to make a matter of public record so you have all the facts before making a decision. There are existing code violations at this property. They are operating without approvals that have been cited by our planning department, our county planning department, our county building and code enforcement department, and our county environmental health division for operating without licenses. There was testimony at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting about debris and other things that were on the property. I'm not sure if exactly that's true or not. The applicants testified that the neighbors had the wrong property or the wrong parcel. So maybe we can hear more from Mr. Myers or our code enforcement division chief in reference to that. But overall, they have a good concept presented plan. There were some inconsistencies, and I believe that the planning and zoning added some amendments. Now is the time for assurances and protections for the adjoining property owners. This is a very small parcel, 8 acres, compared to the 82 acres that we previously heard about down in the Defiance area. This is a low-impact, non-intrusive use, minimum impact. It aligns with the code standards of our codified code of ordinances, 405.510B and 405.060. It meets the county's 2030 master land use and zoning plan. And on one of their conditional use permits, they said that there would be no outdoor loud audible acoustics. But then in their restaurant, they're going to have an open door type facility, and they said that there would be acoustics that would be amplified. So I believe that the zoning, and Mr. Chairman, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe that there is a new condition that addresses that there should be no acoustical loud music at any time for any of the conditional use permits. They've agreed to no fireworks. They've agreed to, from the 100 vehicles down to the 50 vehicles or 50 people at one time. There is ample water and sewer available that's provided by the city of Wentzville. And they were at one point limiting their guests to 50 for the recreational use and 50 for the restaurant. But I believe that there's a new condition that allows it to 50 for all 4 uses at one time. There will be no overnight camping, no recreational vehicles or campers, no tents is what they've agreed to as applicants. There was an amendment made that they're going to have yoga with goats. I kind of feel that our codified code was kind of amended or slighted a little bit. I would ask the council to amend our codified code to allow that for everybody in the county, so there's no question here forthgoing. Their farm stand in the building, I have concerns with structural issues since they did not get a building permit from the county, nor did they get a fire permit from the Wentzville Fire Protection District. And I have questions if the city of Wentzville was notified in this instance, since they're surrounded by the city of Wentzville. And if the Wentzville Fire Protection District, I'd like to hear their feedback and comments in terms of public safety, health, and welfare with fire sprinklers, access, egress, and to make sure that the building is in compliance with our structural code. The testimony from the applicants was when they took over the property, that building that was built from the former owners was in very bad shape, poor shape, and they put a lot of money and expense into it, but they forgot to get the permits, and it's never been inspected, and that's my concern since we're going to be opening it up to the public. Those are my comments, and I ask that you adhere to the conditions set forth by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their meeting a few weeks ago, and ask for unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here that would like to comment on any of these 3 CUPs? Okay, seeing none, we'll open it up to council members for questions and comments.
I'm sorry, what was your name again? Come on up, I'm going to ask you a question. On the time frame on your restriction on your restaurant, what time frame do you have on the condition?
It's, I believe we changed it at planning and zoning to, that the full hours between the farm can function between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m.
It says in here 4 to 6. Is that right, Robert?
There was a lot of different times that we specifically had our market stand hours from 8 to 6, and then we had the restaurant hours, and planning and zoning said, really, it makes sense to simplify it. Can we just say that that the farm is open from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., so that way it's straight hours across the board?
Well, that's what I was going to say. 4 to 6 is way too, I mean, that would never work.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So initially,
Yeah.
it was kind of pieced together with each different event, and they said, let's just do one straight 8 a.m. to 9 p.m.
The other thing you might want to consider, 9 o'clock, I don't know if anybody else, 9 o'clock's pretty early, but, I mean, I know it's in a residential area, but in the wine district, we hear the stuff, but I mean, 10, if the other one we're talking about is 10, that's your call, but I just think you're being kind of restrictive on that issue.
My original, the original concept plan that we put forward, I simplified that just by saying that no events would go later than 10 p.m. Our farm stand, I put in there what the hours were for our farm stand that were open for people to come shop. But that I was viewing as sort of separate from the events. The events would typically take place in the evening, at or around or after the time that our farm stand closes. So I had just said our farm stand would be open from 8 to 6, and that the events would just go no later than 10 p.m. But with planning and zoning, that was their recommendation to sort of tie everything together under that window of time, so.
So you want it to be 9 or 10, or?
I would like for it to be 10, but we agreed that if that's what planning and zoning viewed, if the board viewed that as the best approach, that we would agree to that. But our initial proposal was for until 10 p.m.
Does that have to be, Terry, or Roy, does it have to be amended to 10, or is that a condition, or how would that have to be an amendment?
I think that if you're going to, there's been a recommendation made by staff on this, and the recommendation was a limit of 9 p.m., and that's what planning and zoning was in support of, if I'm not mistaken, correct, Robert?
Yes.
Planning and zoning. I'm sorry.
You good?
I need to get on the record, but, yeah, planning and zoning, when it came before Planning and Zoning Commission, there were different times for the 3 different activities. And again, the discussion was, let's simplify it, so if a zoning inspector goes out, they'll know what activity, it would be simplify it. So it was decided for whatever reason at 9 p.m. I don't know if that's a magic number necessarily, but that was the recommendation of Planning and Zoning Commission.
My recollection is that we were talking about, having the restaurant being the farm-to-table restaurant, and depending on the time of the year, sometimes, in July, it doesn't get dark until 9 o'clock, but other times, and then you talked a little bit about the lighting and that type of thing, and I think the overall thing was that, in general, most of your farm-to-table events would be finished by 9 o'clock, and that's why we settled on that time.
I think that's, probably accurate. There may be the caterer or something leaving after that, which I assume is probably, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't want to
Generally.
limit you, other than, that's an unusual restriction, and when everyone else says 10 or 11 or something, but if you guys are good with it, that's fine,
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be clear, all of our events are going to be sort of boutique and peaceful in nature, so, whether it's 9 or 10, to me, isn't going to really affect the surrounding area in any way. I mean,
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
It says 10 in the recommendation.
yeah, my original submission, and what's in the packet you're getting says 10. I don't know how the amended part from the planning and zoning read, but.
Well, then I would suggest that maybe that the staff, because the one I see says 4 to 6, unless it wasn't fixed, but it should be consistent across the board, right?
Yeah, I don't know what 4 to 6 was.
I don't know, it's in one of the conditions, I don't know which one it was, so, but if, for the record, if it's 10, it's 10, and so, that's fine, yeah.
So is it 9 or 10?
Well, no, I don't know, you just said 10,
Can we-
didn't you?
I believe what,
That's what it says here.
I believe what they're asking us to present us is 9, because that's what the planning and zoning, if I remember correctly, is what we decided on at the end. So that's what you're asking. Now, if you want to change it to 10, you're certainly welcome to do that.
Each of the 3 bills before you says 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., whether it's for the commercial farm stand, the restaurant, or the rural recreational activities. So what's in the bill form before you is 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. for all 3.
If I remember correctly from the planning and zoning, there was a lot of back and forth and talking about that.
Correct.
And at one point, it seemed like you could have just said daylight to dusk, and that would have handled what you guys were talking about. But you were talking about doing outside lighting, and then the summer discussion came up. So I think to Mr. Brazel's point, it may be good to stretch this to 10, just because if you're going to do, July, August, it's not going to get dark until almost 9 o'clock.
Right.
So, and you're going to want to start those dinners later rather than earlier. So you may need the extra hour to get out of that early part of the sun, especially if you're going to be having this catered at the beginning, because your dinner concept sounds a lot to me like Stone Soup Cottage in Cottleville was before they left. It's a very similar type concept where I know you're going to have to look at doing wine pairings that you had talked about. You'll have to get a liquor license, and it varies from that. But I think it's a good thought to just call it 10 o'clock to give you those summer hours as a cushion to where you could very well be done with that for the rest of the year. But it gives you a little bit of cushion to work it out there.
Yeah. Thank you. I approve.
I had originally submitted 10 because I agreed, just like you said, and, but I don't, if it needs to be 9, then I don't want that to be a deal breaker for the whole thing, so.
I guess that was my question though, Terry, do I need to make a motion to
Yes.
amend it to 10?
Yes, I think so. It looks
Well,
like-
do I do that now, Rory?
I think so.
I'd like to make an amendment to move it to 10 o'clock for all the CUPs.
Second.
Okay.
You all those in favor, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we've amended this to go to 10 o'clock.
Okay, great. Would it be beneficial to answer some of the previous questions that just came up while we're here now, or, no? Okay.
Unless council members have questions, yes.
No, this isn't really a question. I just wanted to tell you that this is a really ambitious project. There's a lot of working parts here. And I think, I hope you're not taking on more than you can possibly accomplish, because you have to have all of this done within the time of the permit. So I hope you've done a lot of planning and that you can move forward and make this become a reality, because it's a really cool concept, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Just a reminder for both applicants, for both of these CUPs, we will be voting on that in 3 weeks. Yes, January 30th is when we'll vote on that. Okay. All right, moving on. Public comments.
I need to read the other two bills
Oh, I'm sorry.
regarding that.
I'm sorry, I did that again.
CUP. Bill number 5139, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Jill Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 22-09B for a rural recreational activity to Craig Smith, Ryan Smith, and Darlene Smith, property owners. Bill number 5140, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Jill Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 22-09C for a restaurant to Craig Smith, Ryan Smith, and Darlene Smith, property owners.
Okay. Moving on, next up is public comments. Just a reminder for those that are participating is to fill out a card, and we will call you up by name. Claire?
Michelle McBride.
Michelle? Welcome.
Hello. I am Michelle McBride, the St. Charles County Collector of Revenue, and I thank you for giving me a couple minutes here to speak. Based on the volume of calls that my office and staff and I received this past week regarding property taxes and the drop box, I thought it was very important to share a couple facts with you, and so I just wanted to do that. I'll be brief, and if there'd be a reason for me to expand on anything later, I'll be happy to do so. Real estate and personal property taxes are due and payable once the amount can be ascertained, and by statute, they are delinquent on January 1st. Now, an absolute delinquency date is different than a due date. April 15th is a due date for income taxes. So when the 15th of April falls on a non-business day, that due date slides to the next business date. But with an absolute delinquency date of January 1st, it means property taxes must be paid on or before December 31st. We knew December 31st was falling on a Saturday, and so we made a concentrated effort to make sure that citizens and taxpayers in this county would know. Can we have the display?
It'll come up.
It'll come,
It'll come.
I think.
Here we go. Let me turn this around. So we put on the back, we call them ads, informational ads, reminders that doesn't like my legal paper. That December 31st was falling on a Saturday, and that county offices are closed on Saturday, and that the drop box would be locked off at midnight on December 31st. There were some citizens who felt that was not appropriate, but I can tell you, since I started working in the collector's office in 2000, my predecessor locked it off at midnight, and it has been done every year. It is not something new. So if you're getting calls or comments from your constituents, I wanted you to have the facts. There are also collectors all around the state who do a similar thing. And the Warren County collector actually sent me a picture of hers because, yes, we are not the only ones who do this. So this is in accordance with state law. The absolute delinquency date, the late payment penalty and interest are called for by state law. It is not pleasant for my staff to have to educate people who are argumentative. So I think it's very important that everyone have the facts. And that's it, unless you have further questions or comments, or it would be appropriate to expand later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, I just wanted to thank you because I was one person who called you because I had a person who was pretty upset about that. And I appreciate your coming here tonight to give us the information because I think it's important for everybody to know that you're just not making this up as you go along, following the law, and that's what we have to do. And so thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Claire?
Michelle Dorman.
Good evening. Michelle Dortmund with Diamond Communications. I just wanted to let you guys know that I am here to answer any questions regarding bill for introduction on, let's see here, 5142. Just quickly, there's an existing telecommunications tower, 150-foot telecommunications tower at 29 East Highway N, and we are looking to extend the tower to, we're looking to replace it with a 170-foot telecommunications tower. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
David Reagan.
Good evening.
Evening.
I'm Dave Reagan with Local 42, representing Corrections. Previously, I've come before you, I've given some ideas on how we can attract and retain some corrections officers, because you are in dire need of COs. Okay? And again, as we discussed in the past, there's not a whole lot of new people joining the correctional field. So what we're trying to do is attract them from other departments. So we have to make this the most desirable CO position possible. Okay? Some additional ideas we'd like you to consider are lateral entry. This is already allowed for commissioned officers. You got to do something. Bring in lateral entry for non-commissioned COs. That will help. Years of service in the field. That should be used when calculating location on the pay scale. Joe, I think you argued for that previously. I think that's a great idea. Last, educational incentives. These have been used for a number of years for commissioned officers. Okay? We need to start offering that incentive to the non-commissioned COs. I think those are just three good, very easy to implement ideas to draw people in. And again, there's no new folks coming into this field. We got to do something to make St. Charles County Department of Corrections the most desirable correctional department around. Okay? That's really all I have in that regard. But in case you're not aware, today is Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. And so I would like to thank Director Keene, Chief Ridge, Sheriff Lewis, and all their staff for everything they do. They really help make St. Charles County a premier place. That's all I have.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Judith Moorfield.
Happy New Year. I have a short story to tell you. Once upon a time, there was a woman with strong Democratic affiliation through family upbringing, etc. The words of one of her beloved Democratic leaders, JFK, resonated deeply with her. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. He was far from perfect, but he spoke against secret societies, backdoor deals, and the deep state. He was assassinated. Eventually, this woman found that the Democrats wanted too much control over the people. So she became a Republican. But then, through the years, she came to see that the lines between the two parties were becoming increasingly blurred and almost indistinguishable in actions and corruptions. One day, she woke up to realize that all the freedoms that her family, loved ones, and the founding fathers fought for had been incrementally stolen from her. She was grieved and then angered, and so she prayed and was led to do something. Everett Hale once said, "I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. What I can do, I should do, and with the help of God, I will do." That woman stands before you now, as I have in the past, doing that one thing for tonight. Many of those who attend here on a regular basis are doing the same thing. We have funneled our anger and grief over the crimes against us into educating ourselves and then joining together. Many, if not most of us, were complete strangers to each other 3 years ago. But now we are like family, a family determined to restore what has been taken from us through the lies, brainwashing, ignorance, and tyranny. And we have been showing up here to take the paltry 3 minutes that we're allotted to voice our concerns, and to once again ask you to join us by representing us as you gave an oath to do and that you have a duty to do. We are giving notice that we know what's been taken from us, that we are not ignorant servants. You are our servants. We will not resort to violence. We are lawful and peaceful, but we will not tolerate the egregious thefts and abuses of the rights and freedoms that God gave to us as His creations. Stand with us to right the wrongs or sit across from us one day to give an account for any and all wrongdoings. Your choice. Happy New Year.
Thank you, ma'am.
Amy Benninghoffen.
Good evening. Well, what I was going to say is very similar to what she was saying. I just wanted to come today on the first county council meeting of the year, welcome our new council members, and just to kind of go through a little history lesson of where we've come from. To remind you, because I think it's important to remember our history, therefore we don't repeat it. So when I first came here, I came before you to ask you to help our children, to stop quarantining them and masking them. And, you were telling me you're not the school board. Well, I understand that. But what I also learned was how the local government worked, and that you all were in charge of the county executive and him in charge of the health director. I do believe the health director, I just want to go on record saying, should be elected. So that they can answer to the people, like a lot of other counties around in Missouri, their health director is elected. When I came and asked for help, I was just stonewalled by so many other than Joe. He's the only one who was on our side, the only one, which is why so many people came tonight to support him. I think that, I had a conversation with Mr. Elam, and I was really disappointed with that conversation. I asked him to stand up for the freedom of his constituents, and he told me he would just let the courts decide. Well, guess what? The courts did decide, and the courts did rule in the favor of our children and the parents, and it shouldn't have taken that. You could have stepped in much earlier and helped. Instead, our children are so behind in school now that who knows if they'll ever be able to get caught up. You guys could have done something, and you chose not to. So I come to you tonight to say, let's not repeat history. There will be other things that come along that are going to be hard and are going to be scary for you to stand up to, but I ask you to be brave enough to do what's right this time. That's right. Thank you.
Grayson Justice.
Happy New Year, everyone. My name is Grayson Justice. I live in Harvester Road. On December 3rd of last year, a shooting attack hit 2 electrical substations in Moore County, North Carolina, that led to 40,000 business owners and residentials without power and heat for 4 days. The victim, drag queens. The suspect, white, rational, bigoted, right-wing, homophobic, transphobic, mega supreme. On Christmas Day in Washington of the last year, 4 power substations were under attack that left thousands with no power and heat for 2 weeks after the North Carolina incident. Could this be another copycat of the crime? Maybe. But going to power substations to shut down on a beautiful art that has been part of theater known as drag that started in the 16th century Shakespearean days and also in the 1870s. They say that drag queens and anyone who supports it supports or is in the LGBTQIA community are groomers. I haven't seen a single news article of any drag queen performer has done harmful things to children.
Please.
Do you know what I see in the news that's been grooming children? That's also wear dresses. Have you seen the movie Spotlight? If we have power substations here in Missouri or in this county or in this city, the police should be protecting these electrical substations, because if someone sabotages any substations, our entire country will be out of electricity and heat for 2 years to rebuild and bring back power. Enough with the hate, enough with the violence, enough is enough. Also, this month is the second anniversary of the January 6th insurrection. So remember, all the men and women protect the Capitol. So yeah, thank you and Happy New Year.
Claire?
Arnie Dienoff.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Arnie A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate. First thing I want to talk about is all why you get $1,000 per meeting. Bill number 5133 taxes us, St. Charles County, in 3%, or Nancy Schneider is offering an amended version of 1.75%. I say no new taxes. 54% of our incomes, our family incomes, go to federal, state, county, local, and special taxing districts. And we work for the government. The government doesn't work for us now. No new taxes. The next issue I want to talk about is the 3 lobbyists that Mr. Ellman hired all his buddies to the tune of a lot of money. Where are the weekly updates? And as a matter of fact, I challenge you, Mr. Ellman. Please look at me. I challenge you. Put the weekly updates from your highly paid lobbyist online on the county's website for everybody to see. As a matter of fact, I'm making a request under Chapter 610 that every weekly update of all 3 of your lobbyists comes to my email address. And Mr. Rory O'Sullivan has it, and so do you. So I'm challenging you to be transparent for once. The next issue is pay. Mr. Ellman is going to get a $35,000 pay raise to $183,000 effective January 1st. You all are making $23,000 plus medical benefits if you choose, and a cell phone payment. So that's $1,000 a meeting. The next issue is the Housing and Homeless Prevention Fund. It's $220,000, and I went to that Community Assistance Fund. There's going to be a big, huge downturn of the economy, and we're going to go into a recession. It's going to crash the housing market. You cut their budget by half. It was $440,000 this year, and some people are going to be in trouble in terms of housing in our county. And we really need to look at that because they're sustained from a $3 recording fee of the Recorder of Deeds. And today I went to the en banc, the meeting of the judges. And there is the judges are mad about asking the administration, Mr. Ellman and Ms. Lycum, for $1,450,000 for lecterns right here. They want new technology, and they were 86 by the administration. I have a complaint of their expenditures coming from the law fund, which we pay into when you file a lawsuit. That goes to sustain the law library, not lecterns. They afforded today $245,000 rather than going through getting 3 bids and advertising for 60 days like every other department of county government. We have a problem of politics while taxpayers are royally getting screwed here because we could save $50,000 to $60,000 with Nomad, Tech Electronics, and other vendors.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
No, the speakers.
Okay. Okay. All right. Seeing no more public comments, is there an oral report from the county executive?
Not this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, sir. Consent agenda. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda has passed. Now we go to bills for final passage, starting with bill number 5132.
Bill number 5132, an ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Emergency Communications Association of St. Charles Incorporated, ECA, to provide communications services to St. Charles County Regional Emergency Management during disasters, emergencies, and training and testing exercises.
Okay, any questions or comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bill number 5132, an ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Emergency Communications Association of St. Charles Incorporated to provide communications services to St. Charles County Regional Emergency Management during disasters, emergencies, and training and testing exercises. Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond? Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Swanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Okay, bill number 5132 has passed. Next bill for final passage is bill number 5133.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to amend
I
Bill.
Nancy.
Excuse me, I need to read the
She'll
title
read it first.
first.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Bill number 5133, an ordinance providing for the authorization of a sales tax in an amount of 3% on retail sales of adult-use recreational marijuana to be placed on the April 4th, 2023 ballot for a vote of the people.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend Bill 5133 with substitute Bill 5133.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all right. Let's discuss the substitute bill. What would you like to describe the differences here?
I think it increases the amount of tax, and I'd ask our council to assist me on that.
Okay, right.
Okay, so what it actually does, it does not increase the amount of tax that was asked for in the original bill. What it does is it makes it clearer to the voters that the already existing retail sales tax that the county has that applies countywide will also, it still applies, and this 3% is on top of that. So it's an attempt to make it clearer for the voters exactly what they are voting for.
And so then the total amount would be,
The 3 plus the 1.725.
okay, okay.
Any other comments on the substitute bill?
Just some questions. What is tax on alcohol? Do you know?
Not offhand, no, sir.
The other question I would have is, can we, I know Joanne sent me the uses, can we earmark a percentage of this to law enforcement, since it's going to create problems potentially?
When you say that it's going to create problems.
I mean, that's just an
potentially-
opinion, I probably shouldn't have said that, but can we earmark, the marijuana I'm talking about, can we earmark this tax to law enforcement? Like as a part of a Proposition P where it's earmarked so when it's voted on, the language says that? Because this is what we're voting on tonight, we're voting on the language and everything else.
Correct. This is the idea is that if this is passed in its current form in the substitute, that this is the language that would appear on the ballot.
We haven't passed the total bill yet, we're voting on, this is a substitute, this is on the
Correct.
percentage. Yeah.
If the substitute is passed, that is the language that would be then placed on the ballot, provided that it is passed by the council, yes.
Okay, and then one final question, is there a hurry to get this in tonight where we could have more conversation on making it a percentage of this go towards law enforcement?
Yes, there is a time-specific deadline on this. In order to be able to place this on the ballot in April, this is the final council meeting of the, I guess, prior to the deadline to have it certified and placed on the ballot.
So we could have a emergency meeting like in a week to have
That's
some
correct.
information on this to see if we could, because we all talked about doing a Proposition P. We're always trying to find money for law enforcement and corrections. So why couldn't, since this is marijuana, I don't smoke marijuana, and if you want to, that's fine. But in a lot of states, it creates a lot of problems. So it's going to enhance, may have to enhance law enforcement along with it. And so is there a reason why we can't have, whether or not the council agrees with us, I'm not saying you do, but is there, we could have a conversation, an emergency meeting, or some sort of a meeting, if the chairman so says so, next week sometime to discuss the possibilities of that? Is that a potential?
Mr. County Executive.
Yeah, that is a possibility, and I, to the extent we thought about this at all, we were thinking we could introduce it the first meeting in January and then pass it the second meeting until we realized that we have 5 Mondays in January, which means our next meeting is 3 weeks from now instead of 2. The deadline is the 25th, and the only problem here, and you need to weigh this when you look at everything else, is if we don't get it on this April, there won't be another election that we can put it on without paying a lot of money for a special election. There won't be another one until the following April. Now, the other things you need to realize is we can't tell you right now how much money this is going to raise or not raise. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 dispensaries that will be in the county. I have no idea how well they'll do or how poorly they'll do. This could raise a little bit of money, or I don't know, it could raise a lot of money. We could, as you suggest, if you're not sure what to do tonight, you could call a special meeting anytime before the 25th and make a decision. Or you can simply wait and see what everybody else has done. I've talked to St. Louis County, I've talked to Mr. Page, what they're going to do, and they're still thinking about it, and they're not under the kind of time pressure we are because of our meeting schedule. We can wait and see what everybody does. We can see, I know Wentzville, I think, has either passed it or at least has it on to pass, to put it on in April. And again, people have been asking me about this, and what I have told them is, the people that wanted this passed and the people who pushed for this, I don't know a single one of them who said the state of Missouri was going to be better off if people smoked more marijuana. What they said was, we got people that do smoke marijuana, okay, and they pay for it, but they don't pay any taxes like the people who drink beer and whiskey and other things. So that's really all I have to say about it. I called around to see if there was, a few people were interested. If you want to do this, it's fine. I guess the other thing is if you did it tonight and we changed our mind, we could always go to a judge and ask him to take it off. But the problem with that is we start absentee voting 6 weeks before the election, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we wouldn't have a lot of more time. But, it's up to you. If you feel comfortable, or if you don't feel comfortable passing it, wait 2 weeks. We can have a special meeting. We can try to find out more about it. We may know by that time what other cities are doing, and we may know what St. Louis County's doing. But I apologize for the fact that this kind of came up. Came up quickly, and we don't have as much information as we normally would have for you on something.
If it's you guys can talk about it, but I would like to make a motion, not at this moment, but have some conversation. But I would think that we should have a meeting Monday night, perhaps, of next week, and talk about this, because this is very important. We always talk about the police department and funding and corrections, and someone was talking about, at the last meeting, a couple budget meetings, doing a Proposition P, which I would not be in favor of that, but since we're going to tax marijuana, this is a golden opportunity to tag it on with a law enforcement and corrections possibly, or just law enforcement, I'm not sure, but I think it's worth a conversation.
Yeah, and I do too. And of course, I had a reporter ask me today what we're going to use it for, and I said it's not, as far as right now, it's not earmarked for anything in particular, but I will tell you that the council has made a commitment the last 2 meetings that we're going to do something about salaries. I said, so my prediction is most of this money will go to salaries, And, if you want to earmark it, that's up to you all. But you're going to have, if you don't earmark it, you can use it for those things you want to use it for. Our problem, as you know, we got some earmarks that are so rich, and we'd really love to be able to use some of the earmarks, maybe, excuse me, John, for parks. We got more money in parks, okay, than we really need, but we can't use it for anything but parks. Now, if you want to put this in an earmark it, that's fine, but we may end up with that kind of situation, and ultimately, you don't have to earmark it. I agree. If we have a marijuana, if there's additional problems as a result of legalized marijuana, the burden's going to be on the police department. So, yeah, I think that money probably should be used for that. But it's just a question of whether you want to tie your hands or you want to wait and see exactly how much we get, what the particular need is in any particular year, and then make a decision then.
Nancy?
So my question would be, if we wanted to do an earmark, why would we have to put it in the bill? The bill mainly says, and basically only says, that we're voting to allow this to be put on the ballot. And so why would we need to decide on an earmark before we passed the bill?
Well, I think, I know, for instance, with parks, that was earmarked because parks were very popular.
But isn't the language in the proposition, is this the similar language that is in all the other jurisdictions? Or do you know, have they changed theirs to put in different things?
It is similar. It is not identical. Of the ones that I've looked at, I think we're the only ones that specifically call out what the already existing tax rate is.
Okay.
Not to say that there
But
aren't some that do it, but I
Do
think
the
that's-
other ones have earmarks, as far as you know? Have you come across any other proposals?
I've seen some that have them in whereas clauses, but I don't think that I've ever seen one that actually has it in the ballot language itself.
So it would just be in the whereas clause, but it wouldn't affect what was actually showing up on the ballot.
Correct.
So could we not then pass a bill later, if we pass this tonight and vote for it, could we not then pass a bill later that says that that's what this money is going to be used for, or some portion of it?
Sure, yes, absolutely.
So we wouldn't have to do it before we vote on a bill?
But then the next year, you could go ahead and repeal the bill if you changed your mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's true.
If you go ahead and earmark this and send it to the voters, and the voters decide yes, then you got to go back to the voters to change it. That's why I'm saying, earmarks are usually put in there, like I said, to make sure that there's some particular use that's very, very popular. And obviously, law enforcement, it would be very popular.
Sure.
And if you thought this, if you really wanted this to pass and thought that it might not, then maybe you should consider doing that.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
the
that
fact of the
makes
matter
sense.
is, you got the final decision. You can use this for law enforcement. I think that's probably what we will be using it for. But it's a question whether you want to go ahead and put it in the law.
Or possibly for treatment of some kind, or whatever, yeah. Or educational opportunities. Okay.
I guess
I talked to, I'm sorry, Joe.
No, go ahead, Steve, go ahead.
I talked to somebody in the industry about just the competitiveness, and off the record, they kind of told me that what the Missouri Constitution now allows, we would still be way under what's the taxation in Illinois. So I don't think it's a competitive problem. I don't think it's a competitive problem. It's just, again, you asked a good question. I'm not sure exactly what the tax is on alcohol. We can find out for you. But that was the argument that a lot of people that pushed this made, is if people are going to smoke it, let's go ahead and tax it. And, if you don't want to do that, that's certainly your choice.
Well, again, I think it's, the people of St. Charles County is basically, we are going to be, if we pass this, giving them an opportunity to decide whether or not they want it to be taxed or not. I mean, we're just kind of the middleman here, whether or not we're going to give them the opportunity to do that. Now, when it comes to earmarks, if it's one of those kind of things, if we, if we think that we need it to get it passed, that earmark being in there would make it more passable, then I think that's something we should consider.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to have a work session or whatever you want to call it, a special meeting for Monday night, and in that time frame, we can get some more legal consultation from our attorneys to say, here's what some of our possibilities are, and then talk about the ramifications of having that on the ballot language where it is earmarked, because we're always talking about law enforcement and corrections and the sheriff's department. And if the money, if we talk about we can earmark it however the money goes, but the people should say if they appreciate it being earmarked that way, and whatever funding would normally go to those other places, we would be able to move that somewhere else. So it's kind of the same thing. But I'd like to make a motion to have a work session on this on Monday, whatever time, 6, whatever you say,
Can I suggest that
Yes.
you not do it on Monday so staff doesn't have to come in on Martin Luther King Day?
Yeah, whatever you want,
Yeah.
yeah. Tuesday, whatever.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
Roy just checked the calendar. We could do this 2 weeks from tonight and still have 2 days to get it in.
That would be
That's
better
fine.
for me.
Yeah.
So if you did
that's
it 2 weeks from tonight,
Yeah.
that would still give us time to get it in on the 25th. And see, that's kind of what we were thinking would happen until we realized there was a fifth Monday.
That's fine.
All right, I think the first thing we need to do is a motion to table this particular bill.
I'm sorry.
Is that correct? I think the first thing we would need to do is to table this particular bill.
Well, currently, you've made
have
the
not
motion
approved.
to amend Bill 5133 and replace it with Bill number 5130, substitute Bill 5133. So you need to approve that substitute and then make a motion to table the bill.
All right, okay.
Well, you can table it with a substitute pending.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, in case it
Yeah,
gets,
you
in
could
case it
you
gets
could table
amended
it with the
again.
substitute pending, and then when you come back 2 weeks from now,
Yeah.
first thing you'd have to do is vote on
I'll make a
Councilman
motion,
Schneider's.
I'll make a motion to table that bill with the substitute pending.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so 2 weeks from tonight, we will.
Can we make it earlier though, Terry, like at
Sure.
5 maybe?
So the 23rd on what time?
5, is that okay?
How about
5.
5 o'clock?
Yeah, good for me,
Does that work
yeah.
for you folks?
Yeah.
5 o'clock?
What's the problem?
5 o'clock on 2 weeks
That's
from now.
fine.
That's fine.
We're here.
So it's going to be a special meeting, not a work session, because we're
Correct.
actually going to be
Yeah.
voting on something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that will give us enough time to post the meeting, right? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, that concludes bills for final passage. Now we got bills for introduction. Bill number 5141.
Bill number 5141, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance amending ordinance number 15-123, granting conditional use permit CUP number 15-09 for automobile sales and repair to Paraminder Singh.
Questions or comments on bill number 5141?
I would just say,
Yes.
in looking at this bill, it looks like this is something that's already happening, and they're just expanding their lot. It doesn't look like there's anything new, different really going on here, other than what they pretty much have going on.
Yeah, plus I think they acquired some additional property because there was
That's
a vacation.
what I think the expansion is. They
Yes,
bought new
uh-huh.
property, and they're expanding their current business.
Any other comments? Okay, next bill for introduction is Bill 5142.
Bill number 5142, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Mike Elam, an ordinance amending ordinance number 13-102, granting conditional use permit CUP number 21008 for a telecommunications tower at 150 feet tall to Donald J. Twillman and Dolores M. Twillman Revocable Living Trust.
Okay, questions or comments on bill number 5142?
I'm not sure why they're doing this, but maybe I didn't read everything that came through.
When,
If you'd like to ask her, she's here.
Okay.
And come up, but they're not putting up it's not an additional tower. They're
No,
taking
they're
down an
taking
existing
one
tower.
down and putting up a new one.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
I mean, at the end
Yeah,
of the
if you don't
day,
mind.
correct me
Yeah,
if I'm
thank you.
wrong, you're really only, you're raising the tower 20 feet.
Yes.
and the question is,
Why?
the reason for
Sure.
doing
So
that?
we have a new carrier that is interested in co-locating on our tower, but where the height is right now, 150, does not meet their requirements, so they're looking for additional height. So what we would like to do is build a new tower in that same compound and take the other tower down. So essentially extending 20 feet.
30 feet.
Yeah, is it 170 or 180?
170, and then there's a lightning rod on the top.
Okay.
10 foot.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. I do have to admit that, being on planning, zoning, and obviously on the council, this is the least amount of response for a cell tower that, that I have run across over the years, so.
Yeah.
All right. Next bill for introduction is Bill number 5143.
Bill number 5143, request by Mike Hurlbert, sponsored by Tim Baker, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from R1A, Single Family Residential District, to R1C, Single Family Residential District, per application RZ 22-18.
Questions or comments on Bill 5143? Okay. Seeing none, are there any tabled bills to be removed from the table? Okay, seeing none, are there any announcements from any council member? Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to welcome our new members,
Yes, you would.
first of all, and looking forward to working with both of you. And I would also like to thank our former chairman for serving the last year, which was a very challenging year for all of us, and especially for you, and I appreciate the efforts that you made, and
Appreciate that, thank you.
and thank you very much.
Yes, we certainly appreciate it. Good job. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, folks.